Hello and welcome to Decision 2025. I'm Mike Sakell for Catskills News, along with Mid-Hudson News. This presentation of a conversation with Tim Dymond, who's the candidate in the Republican primary for Sullivan County Sheriff. Just to be clear, that our news organizations had sent out a formal invitation to both candidates in this primary. And since one candidate refused to debate, we have the other candidate being offered an opportunity to at least have a conversation with us about their campaign, and which brings us to this moment here. Tim Dymond, welcome to the conversation. Appreciate you being here. And wanted to start off really with a basic question, kind of lay things out and get an idea of your campaign. You've spent time in law enforcement. This is your background. This is something that you did for many, many years, working in BCI, Bureau of Criminal Investigation, working with New York State Police. So the question is, what makes you the best candidate for Sullivan County Sheriff, as a general question to start things off?
Mike, that's a great question. Thanks for having me on. Thank you to Bogle Media Group and Mid-Hudson News for hosting me today. I would have much preferred there be a debate with my opponent, but we are here. We're going to have a conversation. We're going to go over a few things. I believe I am uniquely qualified to take this position and run the county sheriff's office. I have been in law enforcement for 20 years. I've worked in a variety of different roles in law enforcement, including as a New York City cop, as a local town cop, as a state trooper, state police investigator, undercover. I led the Investigators Association, leading 1,200 state police investigators and senior investigators around the state of New York. So I have a lot of experience in this field. When I talk about experience, I don't mean other people's experiences. I mean, I have gotten murder confessions. I have gotten rape confessions. I have bought thousands of bags of fentanyl from drug dealers in this county. So there is a unique skill set here and leadership skill set that I don't think my opponent has.
Now, you have mentioned your experience in narcotics and as well as firearm investigations as part of your campaign. So
Yes, sir.
how does that translate to what you're looking to do with the Sullivan County Sheriff's Office should you get the position?
It translates well, and I'll explain why. The sheriff's office has moved away from being a police agency and has become a political weapon, really, to lop off the heads of opponents. We need to get back to doing patrol and detective division work, solving crimes, and that's where my experience is in leadership and solving crime. Right? I can sit with a young detective and go over what will help them get through a case, what will help them get to the finish, to end a case with an arrest, not just a closed by investigation. That's not something that Mike can necessarily do because he hasn't had those same experiences.
So in terms of public safety challenges, and there are many within the county beyond, narcotics and what we've been talking about up to now. So kind of lay that out to me. I mean, what would your approach be, and how do you feel that would differ from the current approach of the sheriff's office?
I think that the sheriff right now has a hard time balancing community relations and going to events and actually being in the office and doing the job. The job of sheriff, obviously, is not an easy one. And you do need to wear both hats. But they've created this political mouse wheel where you have to go to all the events and you have to go to every pancake breakfast, chicken barbecue, roast beef dinner. And in turn, we've taken not just the sheriff, but all of our local politicians away from actually doing the job they're elected to do, right? Someone has to lead the office. Someone has to be there when younger members in the office raise their hand and say, I have a question. I'm not really sure how to do this. I've never seen a case like this. What would you do? That's not happening if the sheriff and undersheriff are never in the building. They need to be there. You need to be present. So there needs to be a better balance.
Well, so you're talking about accessibility of the officers in terms of, in public eye. I mean, it is an elected position. So there's always an element of politics involved in this. But do you feel that for whatever reason, that the sheriff is not available to his men?
I think the sheriff is doing a lot less sheriff work and a lot more political work. And you're right, it is a political spot. You have to run a campaign every 4 years, but the other 3.5 years can be spent making the people in this community safe. And that's what I intend on doing, right? There has to be that level of police work and accountability, not so much showing up at events, shaking hands, taking pictures, more or less doing the work, getting down to business and making sure that we keep people safe. Because you can't do that if you're at everyone's event and you're taking pictures with everyone. You have some of this work, Mike, it is down and dirty. You are in the office and you are putting it together, right? You could have a wall of 15 suspects, how they're connected, where their homes are, what's the money source, right? Who are their counterparts? Who's in the area, who's out of the area? You can't do that stuff if you're never there.
So let's talk about some of the larger issues, especially on the state level, because we just went through the budget process. There were some changes in terms of discovery law. Bail reform is still kind of out there, and I was going to ask what your feelings are about that under the current law. I mean, what are the restrictions, and how do you work with that? Should you be in your position in the Sullivan County Sheriff's Office?
Let me be very clear. These reforms that were muscled through, many of which overnight, have made the people of New York less safe. The recent changes to discovery reform and the last two reforms to bail reform, so they reformed the reform and they reformed it again. I have been a very strong voice in pushing for those reforms and for pushing for discovery reform to be corrected. And I've done that as the leader of the New York State Police Investigators Association. And I've given very passionate testimony at the public protection hearings in Albany in front of the Senate and Assembly. And we've made change. But you have to have an articulate person with a strong voice and respect at the state level to get those things done. So they have created issues and hurdles. I've said many times, discovery reform, in my opinion, has caused more damage to the legal system than bail reform has, right? And bail reform is not good. It's caused a lot of problems. Discovery reform is literally getting victims no justice, and it's allowing suspects to continue to victimize the same people over and over again. So we will work very hard and be very vocal in opposition of them, but also present ideas of how we can make it better. Not just say, there's nothing we can do. Bail reform tied our hands. Discovery reform tied our hands. That's unacceptable. That should be unacceptable to the people of this county and the people of this state. We have to do better.
Well, going back to some of the issues, specifically drug-related issues, technology plays a big role now. Not just with that, but focusing on that in the sheriff's office. The current Sullivan County Sheriff has touted the fact that he has, in fact, added a lot of new technology to help assist in this ongoing issue, this drug crisis. So are there any specifics that you can point to that you feel specifically could make some changes, that you would make some changes should you be running the sheriff's office?
So I guess the sheriff would be referring to the purchase of some poll cams, maybe some GPS trackers, things of that nature. Those tools are fantastic, right? And they're necessary. But those tools without experience and leadership are nothing. And I've said this before, and I've made this comparison. It's like buying brand new furniture for your house while the roof leaks and it all gets destroyed, right? You need a good structure. You need detectives that are experienced. That experience is going to come from leadership. Much of this profession is passed down. And if no one is passing down that experience, and no one can say, hey, you know how I would do this case? I would start here, and then I would work here, and I would then go there. And the reason I would do that is because I've done it, right? I have dismantled fentanyl trafficking organizations in this county. I have testified in county court and in federal court as an expert witness in front of defendants that I purchased narcotic drugs from. These are experiences that my opponent doesn't have, and he never will.
So let's touch upon the one issue that kind of blew up early in the campaign, and that was the FBI investigation and the article. I'm pointing to the specific article in January in the River Reporter. You publicly stated that the Sullivan County Sheriff's Office was under FBI investigation. There's been some back and forth about that. Of course, Sheriff Schiff has denied any sort of investigation. So can you clarify for me what information has led you to make these claims that, are pretty serious?
I can clarify as much as I can do so right now in front of you and in front of the camera. And I wish the sheriff was here to clarify for himself, right? Because I would ask him very flatly, Mike, do you not have knowledge of an ongoing investigation in your office by the FBI? Because he may say he doesn't, but he does. With full certainty, he does. Now, does that mean they interviewed him? No. Does that mean they've interviewed his undersheriff? I don't know. But they know that this is going on. Most of the county knows it's going on. There was testimony given in a legislative hearing in the hearing room about it, and people still turned a blind eye. It's almost like some people in this county don't want things to get better. They don't want positive change.
Well, in all fairness, now the sheriff has, as you said, denied in terms of ever having been involved personally in any kind of, questioning or investigation, as well as the undersheriff. There were some individuals who might have been within the sheriff's office that may have been involved in some kind of FBI investigation. Am I correct? And that's basically been the sheriff's position on this, that this is really not a full-blown Sullivan County Sheriff's Office investigation.
The FBI, when they interview people, Mike, and I've worked for the FBI, I've actually been used as an undercover by the FBI in New York and out of state. I'm very familiar with how they operate. They rarely will tell a suspect that they are a suspect until they are ready to take the case down. But also, these investigations are incredibly well documented. So if they speak to someone, they document. They are a very detail-oriented organization. So to say, hey, they've interviewed a couple of deputies and maybe a few business owners, that's all going to be documented. And that's all an investigation. So instead of the sheriff coming out and saying, if there is an investigation into my office by the FBI, I will help you root out any corruption because I hate corruption as much as the next person. What has he done? He's posted on his social media Facebook page that some local organization says that a FOIL request or a FOIPA request to the FBI says there's no investigation. Well, Mike, I have news for you and anyone else that doesn't know. If the FBI is investigating you for public corruption, they're not going to tell you whether you FOIL them, FOIP them, or anything else until they want to tell you.
Well, let's talk also about the other issue within this whole case, I guess, or situation, and that was something involving reports about an accident report. Now, this was an accident that took place, if I remember, and I'm just remembering off the top of my head, in 2020? Was it 20? It was a good long time ago, like maybe 4 or 5 years ago. This happened, and the claim that your campaign has made, that you've made, is that there was evidence that Undersheriff Eric Chaboti had, in fact, instructed his officers to change the accident report because it involved a police vehicle at the time. This was on Route 52 in Liberty. And since then, the undersheriff has stated that you can change an accident report. You can amend an accident report after the fact. But I guess my question to you, the more broad question that I'd like to ask you in terms of the campaign is that, how would you ensure transparency and accountability in the sheriff's office and how it pertains to issues such as this?
Mike, there is so much work to be done in that office. It's daunting. And I've talked to the team that's around me, our campaign team, which, if for those that are paying attention, is filled with skilled, experienced investigators, detectives, retired police officers. And it's daunting. How do you do it, though? So right now, the sheriff's office has operated without a chief of patrol for over 2 years, right? Chief Muthig has been out on a sick leave, has not been there. The way that they have the organization set up is the chief of patrol manages your patrol division, detective division, and also internal affairs. You have to separate internal affairs from patrol and detective division. That is a separate assignment that should be exclusive, and that person every day, their job should be to come into the office, make sure there's accountability, make sure things are running appropriately, make sure that we are dotting our I's and crossing our T's. That person would be a perfect person to maybe start heading up the accreditation program that the sheriff's office promised they would do in 2001 in the Reimagining Police plan that was put out by every police agency in the state. They said they were going to do it. March of 2021. Here we are over a year later, and it's not done. There is no accountability in the office because they're not in the office. That's the problem. This office needs new leadership like I've never seen.
So now, what if you were elected? What would you say is your first major change in the Sullivan County Sheriff's Office?
The first major change, there's obviously going to be some leadership changes at the top. Some of the leadership that is there will not be there after I get there, right? Because I want to fill it with experienced police officers that I know that will do a great job making sure that we mentor and develop strong relationships in the whole building. That's patrol and the jail, all right? Everyone else, there's rumors being started that we're looking to get rid of the secretarial staff and administrative staff, and that's not true. There's some leadership that's going to change. Besides that, everyone else is part of the team, and we are going to work with them to make them as effective in their role as we can possibly make them. So that would be the first change. The second thing I'm going to do is I am going to get to know every employee in both the jail and patrol and civil division. I'm going to know them. I'm going to know their families. They are going to feel like they are a part of a team. Morale is at an all-time low in that office. If people aren't happy coming to work, they're not going to come to work and do a good job, right? And all of us, Mike, you included, myself, and the multiple roles I've held, sometimes work isn't fun. Sometimes you go to work and you just argued with your wife and you just had your kid get in trouble in school and you're having a bad day and you still have to go to work. Every day is not going to be a great day, but it is a lot easier going to work when you know you're appreciated, you know you're respected, and you know that the people that you're going to be going to work and reporting to give a crap about how you're doing, how your family's doing. How can we make things better? That's the change that has to happen almost immediately.
Well, Tim Dymond, as we kind of wind down here, I wanted to just talk a little bit in general about the campaign. Have you done your own polling as far as name recognition goes? I mean, how's the campaign going overall, and what are your feelings about that, about people connecting with you during this campaign from Sullivan County?
The campaign has been going well. There is a undercurrent of people here that want change and that think the county should do better. So we feel very confident in our position right now. We're going to keep working and keep driving people to get involved, right? This is where we live. This is where our families live. This race matters on so many levels. To me, this is not just a sheriff's race. This is a race to see if Sullivan County continues on the same path it has for the past 20 years, or if Sullivan County takes a new direction with some new leadership, fresh ideas, fresh energy, right? Can we do better? Because if people are happy with how things have been for the last 2 decades, then they should continue to vote the way they have. But if they feel there's a way we can benefit and change and get better, then man, come out and vote. Come out and make your voice heard.
So now the Sullivan County Republican Committee did not endorse you. That's one specific issue in terms of this, but there is the Republican primary. Of course, you'll be on the ballot. So how has that shaped your campaign? Do you feel it's an issue? Do you feel it's a detriment to the campaign itself or interacting with the voters?
That's an interesting question, Mike. So the Republican committee didn't come out and endorse me, even though my opponent very, very obviously was trying to get the Democrats' endorsement as well, which is something that many people in the committee aren't happy about. But I would say this, Mike, we have rattled the good old boys cage. We have rattled the things can just go the way they're going group. And I think that being a proud lifelong Republican and standing with the party that I've always stood with has been very effective in campaigning. And when I go door to door, people really appreciate that. It resonates that I stuck with the party that I've been my whole life.
Tim Dymond, Republican primary candidate for Sullivan County Sheriff. I very much appreciate you taking the time, sitting down, and having this conversation. Thank you, Tim.
Can I touch on one more thing before we close?
Sure.
The jail, right? We have corrections officers in the jail that have been mandated for not just the last 5 years, the last 15 to 20 years. They have been worked like dogs with very little respect, right? The sheriff stood with the state COs while they protest, as did I. The difference is, though, the sheriff should have been standing with them, but then also working for his people, because his corrections officers are facing the same difficult demands, the same dangerous conditions. They also are being mandated to work. They're missing their kids' games, their anniversaries, their parties. Why was that not a priority? Because it wasn't politically popular. That's why it wasn't a priority. I talked to a CO a couple days back, and he said, Tim, during police week, there's a giant electronic sign in front of our office celebrating police officers and the service that they give. During corrections officers week, there wasn't. That kills morale. We must build morale. We have to get them a better contract. We have to take care of our people.
Well, the contract is under negotiation.
Yes.
Right now, from what I understand.
Yes,
right?
and they deserve.
Now, the sheriff's office has reached out in certain cases and brought in a few of those COs that were recently let go. So, I mean, do you feel that a step forward? Would that be something you'd look to continue?
Absolutely. Any way that we can fill those positions so we can reduce some of the mandates so the members of the office can be with their families and not miss events and get that recharge so they come back to work refreshed. Any way we can do that is a good way.
And you think you can do that through the union negotiation? Because, I mean, this seems to be a statewide problem. I mean, from the state level, and I understand that different unions represent different organizations. I mean, this isn't the state CO union that's negotiating with the county right now. Excuse me. But I mean, do you feel that this issue can be fought against better working conditions and trying to avoid more overtime and things of that nature?
Absolutely. I mean, the old saying, you have to inspire before you can hire. Right? We have to inspire young people to want these positions. We have to be able to engage them, connect with them. If we can do that, then we improve the amount of people trying to get the job. We fill our ranks, and then we have the reduced number of mandates, and we don't have the person getting stuck there 24 hours in a row. Right? So there are many ways we can make it better. We have to use our heads. We have to come together, collaborate, and try to make things better.
Well, Tim, we've veered a little off time here, but again, thank you very much for the conversation, and I appreciate bringing up all those important topics, including the jail and COs at the jail in that situation. Thanks again for the conversation.
Thank you, and thank Jim. I appreciate your time.